Well, it looks like the Rotten Tomatoes scores are in for Lower Decks, and they are a little misleading. Hello everyone, I am Becca Random 42, the one, the only, the original, your favorite YouTube consumer advocate, Harpy, huge Star Trek fan, do not like the modern day Kurtzman secret hideout, bad reboot brand of Star Trek. You know, the 25% different stuff. You know the stuff I'm talking about.
I like science.
That stuff. And, well, the reviews are in, and some people are loving it, some people are hating it. Rotten Tomatoes has a few things to say. We're going to start off with Rolling Stone magazine. Star Trek Lower Decks animated satire is highly illogical, so they don't seem to like it too much. If you do want to read the full article, definitely check it out. The final season of Star Trek The Next Generation features an episode called Lower Decks, told from a point of view of a group of junior officers on the Enterprise who see our heroes as their demanding and at times unfair bosses. It offered a fresh perspective on a show that could often feel quite tired in its last year, and cast the Enterprise bridge crew in an entirely new light without making Picard and the others seem out of character. Yeah, and it's still, this is exactly the point that they're making here, and I gotta elaborate on that. It took our still in character universe without destroying or breaking anything, and it did show a slightly different perspective. It did show life in a different way on a starship, but it didn't detract from anything. That is not the case with Lower Decks. You know what? So if you do want to read through this whole article, I don't want to read the whole thing because there's a lot to get through in this video, but short story, they didn't like it too much, as does anybody, I think, who really has an attachment to the original Star Trek or The Next Generation or any of the spirit of Star Trek. The hopeful, optimistic message of working together, bringing together the best and the brightest. You go and explore space, see what's out there, see what kind of people you can meet and maybe form allies with. And they give a little bit of a backstory, which you probably already know if you've seen any of my reviews, any of the other reviews here. They're talking about the showrunner, the writer, Mike McMahon. He's a longtime writer on Rick and Morty, a fact that would be apparent even to those without access to his resume. Yeah, because that's what Star Trek Lower Decks is basically just the same gross humor of Rick and Morty that I didn't like when I was forced to watch Rick and Morty. I gave it a shot. I did give Rick and Morty a shot. I am not a Rick and Morty fan. I'm definitely more of a Star Trek person. That's definitely more my wheelhouse than a Rick and Morty sort of thing. I think I aged out of a lot of the gross out adult cartoons about 20 years ago. That's just a me thing. So that's part of why I didn't really like this, because I was expecting something a little closer to Red Dwarf. I was expecting something to be a little less Rick and Morty in space. Because let's face it, Rick and Morty does not belong in Star Trek. It's like mayonnaise, ranch dressing, and chocolate. You know, you got all these things that are perfectly fine, and in the right combination of things, you know, you can have the mayonnaise and ranch dressing complement each other. You could even throw mayonnaise into a cake to use that instead of eggs. But when you have like mayonnaise and chocolate and ranch dressing all jumbled together, it's not going to taste good. I promise. I promise. Don't try it at home either. The primitive drawing style, the disgusting narrative, of which many of the stories in the premiere, Bulmer gets suckled by a giant space spider, while many of the ship crew members are transformed into zombies with a taste for human flesh, and the general sense of chaos, all feel straight out of the Adult Swim series. Exactly. Rick and Morty was inspired by the relationships between Doc Brown and Marty McFly in Back to the Future, but it's not an actual Back to the Future spinoff, and that makes a huge difference. It doesn't have to be respectful to anything or anyone. It doesn't have to be respectful to anything or anyone, and it can rewrite its own universe rules many times over. Lower Decks, though, isn't off-brand parody, but an approved part of a familiar and revered brand. So, whatever the satirical elements the new show features about life in Starfleet can only go so far. Exactly! But then the entire show seems to be caught between extremes. It's just over the edge of being too adult for kids to watch. Mariner complains that a Yeti she once met was being a dick, and in one episode gets a punishment detail to clean the holodeck of what's implied to be, ew, giggity juice. We'll just censor it with giggity juice. but never really delves into truly R-rated Trek content. Several words even get bleeped when characters on Star Trek Discovery and Picard have cursed. No, they don't. They don't really bleep it. We bleep it to censor our reviews of it. But no, they do throw on your full-on F-bombs. They throw in your full-on, all of the
sheer fucking hubris.
No, they don't edit anything on Picard or Discovery. I wish they did. I wish they understood what an edit button was. I wish they understood where to show some restraints, but they don't. It may just be that Rick and Morty's style doesn't work if Dan Harmon's not involved. His creative absence was also felt in McMahon and Rick and Morty co-creator Justin Roiland's recent Hulu comedy Solar Opposites, which the handful of episodes I saw lacked both the cleverness and unexpected pathos of the pair's work with Harmon. I know I'm not going to read the whole thing because there's a lot to get through on this video. Whatever the reason, Lower Decks is the latest disappointment in the Star Trek stewardship of CBS All Access and producer Alex Kurtzman. Discovery and Picard have both had their moments, but those series, like Lower Decks, are most effective when merely evoking nostalgia for Trek shows of general past, rather than when any of them try to do their own thing. Star Trek and comedy don't have to be mutually exclusive. Case in point, Kirk and Spock's San Francisco bumbling in Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home. But Lower Decks never figures out the right balance between its love of the old stories and the new course it wants to chart. That's because the new course is set out to directly annoy and get rid of the established fan base. Because what happens? We expect something. We have expectations for Star Trek. And there's a reason why everybody nicknames this one Star Trek Lowered Expectations. Or Upper Deckers is what I call it. Because they just basically took a giant steaming you-know-what in the upper deck of the tank. And then you're left coming in smelling it. And you don't know where it's coming from. You don't quite know where it's coming from. But you know something doesn't smell right. Now, what you really want to hear about is the Rotten Tomatoes scores. So, of course, we got some shenanigans going on, like we always do with Rotten Tomatoes. I haven't actually looked at Rotten Tomatoes in months and months and months since there was really no reason to, because there's no movies in theaters that you can go and see. I forgot that they do also talk about TV shows. So, when you go into the score details here, you get a all critics score of 62% and an average audience score of 36%. That means the audience isn't really digging this that much. Only some of your pre-approved critics. And you know why they're doing this? They're bringing in all of the critics together because they're pre-approved corporate media, access media, those sort of people. You know, the global franchise group that they formed about a year ago that I've done videos on, where they have people just out there to market their shows. Those sort of people. You know, the sort of people who get access to all the goodies, all the little, well, we could just say the swag bags, the bribes, the things to make it less hard for them to want to go in and just completely destroy something that I know people worked very hard on. I get it. People worked really, really hard on it. But we see right through it, because when you actually go into the top critic score, it's a lot lower. It's a lot closer to what the fan reaction has been. Is it 33%, 36%. And you know what? Bounding Into Comics actually has another number that they pulled up last night. It's even lower that they pulled up. Now, of course, mine is live as I'm recording this on Friday afternoon. Bound Into Comics, they toppled out at a 27%. Or I guess bottomed out at a 27%. Here's what some of the critics are saying. Roxana at RogerEbert.com gives the show a rotten score. She writes, Lower Decks is amusing but slight and needs a clear course forward to demonstrate whether the angle it brings to Star Trek has singularity or longevity. So we've got a lot of people who just don't care about this. We don't care about this show. It's not good quality Star Trek. It's more of the same. It is Rick and Morty in space. It's a bunch of people yelling all over each other. And the fact that, ew, she's there literally having to squeeze his heart to make it. This is what I didn't like about Rick and Morty. I don't like the gross out humor. This is why I stopped watching Family Guy 20 years ago, because it got a little bit too gross. It got a little bit too over the top. And when you go into Rotten Tomatoes here, it's not even easy to find all of the scores. It's not easy to find what they're even saying. They don't make it easy for your average, normal, ordinary consumer. all you see is the 62%. And this is what I really want to call out, because a lot of people who are just scrolling through Rotten Tomatoes or something, they'll see, oh, 62%, it must not be that bad. Oh, you just got your toxic fans who hate it again. And this is one of the problems with sites like Rotten Tomatoes. This is one of the problems with having these sites that are so easy to manipulate, so easy to just change and tweak and give the illusion that it's better than it actually is. Because how many people are going to go in and click on it? How many people are actually going to go click on it and see what the actual critics, the actual legit press, you know, like the Rolling Stone magazine people say? And they gave it a right down smack dab in the middle score here of, what is this, 2.5 out of 5. Your average ordinary person can't even find this half the time. It is very, very difficult to even find a link to the reviews. You just see the score and you just see the number. So this is one of the problems I have with modern day Rotten Tomatoes and modern day online score aggregators. Anytime they're so easy to manipulate, anytime that they're so easy, all they have to do is you click the score details and you see a 62%. Not everybody's going to go in there and click it and see what the actual score is. Not everybody's going to go in there. And we know a lot of these critics can just be bought off because, well, let's face it, a lot of critics sold their integrity just for a bag of popcorn, it seems. And I'm not saying exactly specifically who, but do you really think it deserves that great of a score? I can see if you're a hardcore Rick and Morty fan. I can see if you absolutely love everything that is like animated, gross out Adult Swim humor. You might actually like this. But if you're coming in from a Star Trek fan point of view, if you're coming in from a Star Trek perspective, and you're hearing, oh yes, it's supposed to be Red Dwarf. It's supposed to be a little bit closer to in canon. It's supposed to, and it looks visually in canon, it looks fine. For the most part, except for the gross out humor and some of the weird, odd cartoon designs of the characters. But the ship, in the background, all the background art looks spot on. It looks perfect. But when your integrity can be bought out for a thing of bottom shelf whiskey and a lemon and some stickers. Oh, and don't forget the bag of Haribo. Don't forget the bag of popcorn and the gummy bears. There's some Haribo in there. Star Mix. Special labeled. I don't know if I want to trust your opinion on this. Oh, and shout out to Bounding Into Comics again, and also bad me for not reading through their article. IMDb, you see all their IMDb score. This is what we see all the time. You see a lot of positive, and you see a lot of people who are giving some legit scores, and then you see a lot of negative. You see more negative than 10 out of 10 positive. And like anything, you're going to have people who want to come in and falsely inflate it on one way or another. And this is where we get all people saying, oh, you're just review bombing, you're just review bombing. Well, it works both ways too, doesn't it? It works when people come in and falsely inflate a score as well. And that happens all the time. You get people who are like, oh, I'm going to show those toxic fanboys. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to show those toxic fanboys and I'm going to give it a good score because they're just a bunch of ists and phobes. As for who the show is more popular with, females over 45 gave it the highest score of 8.5. Females over the age of 17 gave it a higher score overall. The show appeared to fall flat with males under the age of 18 as they gave show an average score of 1.5. But the sample size is quite small. Yeah, so what does that tell me? A bunch of women sitting around on the internet, a bunch of Gladys Kravitzes, a bunch of Karens go in and decide to, watch this? These are the same people who cause all the trouble on social media. These are the same type of people who run the whisper networks in the comics industry. These are the same type of people who get on there and stan Raylo. These are the same type. That's who this is for. This is for that small little demographic of cosplay women who are just going to love and show up and cosplay these characters. Rebecca S. gave the show 1 star. She wrote, I miss when Star Trek was actually Star Trek. And if you want to go through and read the entire article here, I did want to transform it just a little bit just to kind of give you guys a good breakdown of what the consensus out in the ether is. I clearly didn't like it, but keep in mind, it's not a show for me. It's for apparently a bunch of Karens who want to go around yelling at everybody.
Drop the taco. Get in the car.
And the people who got all the free swag. Did you enjoy the show? Did you not enjoy the show? Tell me what you thought of Lower Decks in the comment section below. I am MechaRandom42, and I'll see you guys on the next video, live stream, or wherever. Bye. Thanks for watching. If you liked it, make sure to hit that like button. And if you want to see more, don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next video. Bye!